If the Senate President did say that 2 weeks after the election, Nigerians will see a secure country, then it leaves only one conclusion. Either he wasn't in his senses when he said that, or they are genuinely playing with our insecurity in order to win an election. What are you waiting for? Why do we need to wait until 2 weeks after an election? And what happens if you lose that election? Are they even thinking of the possibility that they could actually lose that election? You know, we had a president who lost an election, and the heavens didn't fall. The most important thing President Tinubu or APC and this administration can do is to secure Nigeria now. Now. Not wait until you win an election. President Tinubu has become a prisoner of his own ego. He is quite possibly the most powerful president we've had since 1999, maybe even in the military days. He has amassed so much power around himself. Maybe it makes him feel more secure, maybe it makes him feel more confident, but whether it was by design or by accident, President Tinubu is the most powerful, quite possibly the most powerful black man, certainly the most powerful African leader, defined as a president who has all the trappings and the mechanics of power. That makes you a prisoner. It doesn't make you very powerful. It makes you a prisoner of your own thinking. It makes you a prisoner of a very, very tiny cycle of people who have access to you. It makes you a prisoner of poor advice, which you can't avoid. And it locks you out. It doesn't allow you to know what is going on.
This is Naija Unfiltered on SYMFONI TV. My name is Olawale Oluwade. And my guest this afternoon is Dr. Hakeem Baba-Ahmed, retired permanent secretary, but currently the chairman of the People's Redemption Party, incidentally Nigeria's oldest political party. Doctor, nice to have you this afternoon on the show again.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me back. I always enjoy being here on this show.
Absolutely. You're welcome. The feeling is mutual. Let's get right into our conversation, Doctor. There have been 13 attacks, insecurity on Nigerian military bases this year alone, 2026. And the military, our military now is on the defensive, reacting to attacks instead of preventing them and allowing bandits to strike at will, having a field day, as it were. As we sit here, you know, entire communities, villages are deserted across this country. People are in IDP camps. The number keeps increasing. What's going on, Doctor? How do you read this?
Well, first, thank you again for inviting me. I come prepared to answer very difficult questions from you, and this is one of the most difficult.
Yes.
I think what's happening is that this administration doesn't have a handle on our national security. It didn't happen last week. It didn't happen 2 months ago. It's been gradually increasing. Even the best friend of this administration will admit that in the last 3 years, our national security has deteriorated. To put it in historical context, President Buhari by 2023 had left a country which was virtually emptied in terms of its capacities. Our military was severely demoralized, underfunded, under-equipped, under-motivated under President Buhari. President Tinubu takes over and commits himself to re-securing Nigerians. And he has failed woefully. They will tell you every day they've killed 20 insurgents, 20 ISWAP officials. But the numbers of people who are victims daily, on a daily basis, is increasing. So that's one yardstick you use in asserting that Nigeria is fundamentally an insecure country, which is a shame. Because the Nigerian military, Nigerian intelligence institutions are good enough. Some of the best, they used to be some of the best in the world. And what's happening now? They take our military people, they take policemen, they take community leaders, they take citizens, almost at will. Now, I'm not an expert, I'm not an insider, so I'm not making an expert opinion, stating an expert opinion, but I can tell you there are very, very serious efforts to engineer a takeover of this country.
Well, seriously?
Well, look at this. Our government may be trying, but it's not succeeding in stopping the upsurge of violence around citizens, around communities. We're failing. We're on the defensive, as you said in your question. There are subterranean efforts. The US is involved. China is involved. Russia is involved. France is involved. These are countries that ordinarily should be friends to our country. The degree of their involvement, I cannot say, but I do know that they are intensely interested in what's going on. If you look at the northeastern part of Nigeria, in the last 6 months to 1 year, from Kebbi, part of Zamfara, Niger, parts of Kwara, parts of North Central, have gone under. They are going through what they never knew was happening. So clearly, there appears to have been an opening that has been exploited, perhaps from the Sahel. Foreigners and interests are coming into this country, taking advantage of a void. And that void can only be open borders, a weak defensive system, exposed communities, and quite honestly, and this is the most worrying thing about it, a government that is coming to terms with the fact that we have to live with this. We don't have to live with this. This level of insecurity is intolerable. Nigerians should not resign themselves to living with this kind of thing, and we must say no. So, to answer your question again, President Tinubu has failed to secure Nigerians, and I am wondering what he would say to Nigerians when he now begins to campaign for 2027. Because clearly, he has absolutely nothing to say to us that will assure us that if we give him another 4 years, he will secure this country. What he couldn't do in the last 3 years, when things are not as bad as they are now, I cannot see this president do anything better rather than getting it worse. If he can, let's see what he would do between now and, say, November, December, and January. And I can tell you in advance, nothing. Rather than address the core of the problem, he just appointed a special advisor on Homeland Security. What does that mean? What is Homeland Security? What about all this army of institutions and structures and systems that we have on the ground? Clearly, that's an admission of failure. This man, no matter how good he is going to have to operate either under a whole layer of systems and structures and people and institutions that have failed, or he's going to have to create his own structure. And that merely just compounds the problem. So there's no clear thinking. There appears to be a resignation on the part of government that Nigeria has to live with this. And we have to ask the question, why would Tinubu ask Nigerians to re-elect him again? This is the same president that said, if I don't give you power in 4 years, don't vote for me. There's no power. We have less power now than we had when he was in. Now, we are more insecure than when he came to power. On what basis are we going to vote for this man? Just because he's the president and he says, vote for me so that I can have 8 years? 8 years of disaster? Is that what you're asking Nigerians to go through? And I know in 2027, I lead a party that is saying to Nigerians, say no. No. This is our country, sir, and we have suffered enough.
Sir, thank you for your opening remarks. Both the president, in fact, it was the Senate President first, who said it in his characteristic jocular manner, because everything to the Senate President seems to be, he finds everything to be funny. You know, no matter how dire the situation is, he tries to make light of every serious situation. So he said, oh, he guarantees Nigerians that 2 weeks after next year's presidential election, insecurity will taper out or just peter out.
2 weeks.
Yeah, he said it. He said he will just...
Are you sure he wasn't joking?
That's what I said, because you don't know when he is serious or when he's joking. Now, the president also in an interview recently, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, said it is politicians, his opponents that are using insecurity. They want to scare me off, and that he's a Lagos boy, he's a strong man, he does not get scared easily.
And I'm a very patriotic Nigerian. I am committed to the peace and security of this country. I am law-abiding, and I really, really detest, I hate our circumstances. I grew up in a country, I'm 72 now, I grew up in a great country that made every challenge and solved and dealt with it. I lived in a country, I was old enough to see the genesis of the Civil War, the entire execution of the war, and the incredible method of healing that took place immediately after it. I saw a great country with a great promise, and I saw waste and abuse and decline that I would have sworn 20 years ago was impossible. If the Senate President did say that 2 weeks after the election, Nigerians will see a secure country, then it leaves only one conclusion. Either he wasn't in his senses when he said that, or they are genuinely playing with insecurity in order to win an election. What are you waiting for? Why do we need to wait until 2 weeks after an election? And what happens if you lose that election? Are they even thinking of the possibility that they could actually lose that election? You know, we had a president who lost an election. Absolutely. And the heavens didn't fall. Absolutely. So why do we wait? Why do we have to wait? That's why when you mention this thing, because this is the first time I'm hearing it, that the Senate President said wait until 2 weeks, within 2 weeks after the election. So in other words, they're now trading votes for our security. Give us votes, and we'll give you security. In other words, what they're doing now is withholding our security and playing with it as an electoral asset. That is the most irresponsible thing anybody could say, not even do, to say, the number 3 citizen of the country, to say to Nigerians, if you vote for us, in 2 weeks you'll be secure. First, with all due respect, I would say he's lying. There's no way you can resecure a country in 2 weeks. Because if you can, this is the time to fix it. 2, he's a poor politician. The most important thing President Tinubu or APC and this administration can do is to secure Nigeria now. Now. Not wait until you win an election. Number 3, by the time we have this election, Nigerians would have been so fed up with an administration that just rolls out press statements, Americans have killed some ISWAP leader, this one has done this one has done this. The second part of the question about blaming politicians, again, is pathetic. This is the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria with the entire array of access to information. If you know a politician in this country or politicians who are using insecurity to demarcate you, to make you unpopular, why don't you pick them up? They are holding el-rufai now on the grounds that he said that he knows someone who was bugging Rabiu's phone. That is 1,000,000 times less than a president himself, commander-in-chief of the armed forces, with intelligence, with security, everything, saying my enemies are at play. It's my political enemies that are causing this problem. If he said that, then it shows that President Tinubu has completely lost touch with the realities in this country. Because I don't see how you would be president in charge of our security. You swore on the 29th of May 2023 that you protect Nigerians. You have failed to do that. And now you're saying, oh, it was my enemies that have done that. In what way? If he's talking about criticisms, then I'm sorry for him. Nigerians will criticize him because that's his job to secure us. If he's saying that to find excuses, then I'm sorry, that is the lamest excuse you can find. If he's saying that because he has evidence, then it is irresponsible of the president not to move against those people. Enemies or not enemies, any Nigerian who is compounding our insecurity, whether he's in government or outside the government. It's an enemy of the people, and it is the responsibility of this administration to deal with it.
Serious posers, have been raised about possible saboteurs in the military establishment, giving information to criminals, insurgents, terrorists, bandits, and the likes. Not just giving information, colluding with them. Because sometimes it beggars belief that these attacks can happen just, so brazenly, and the state seems to be helpless. How do you agree to the infiltration of our security architecture by fifth columnist?
Well, I can't comment on. I don't have the evidence to support the case that our military is colluding with subversives.
Certain elements.
Yeah, I don't have the evidence, but what I do have evidence for is that increasingly the capacity of our military to secure this country, not just simply to be defensive and to run when they are, is increasingly our capacity is diminishing. And that means that overall our armed forces are failing to protect us. So something is wrong. And many things are wrong. The ones that we do know is that our military is under-equipped, it is under-resourced, morale is low. I don't know what the internal mechanics and mechanisms for command and control are. We can only assume that they are severely handicapped. The enemy, on the other hand, has high morale. They are well equipped, they have good intelligence, they are quite capable of fighting our military, sometimes successfully. That is a very dangerous situation to live under. Because look at the Northeast. No matter what they say about ISWAP, and the enemy is on the upsurge. In the Northwest, in the North Central, in many parts of this country. What do we need to be to wake up to the fact that the only means we have to protect Nigerians is our armed forces, our intelligence community, our policemen. Policing is gone in this country. What needs to happen? Do they need to come into Abuja and take over this country? Something is wrong. And if we don't come to terms with the fact that our capacities are declining, our capacities to protect Nigerian citizens are declining, and we need to do something dramatic, we will wake up one day and find insurgents claiming that they have taken over this country and foreign interests. That's how bad it is. I hope that people don't read this as alarmist, because as a Nigerian, I'm deeply worried. Our country has no business being where it is, on the defensive, running away or waiting to be attacked, citizens exposed. This is intolerable. And then you have the same administration under which this thing is going on, coming forward to say, we want you to give us another 4 years. They won't get it. Not in a free and fair election. They won't get it.
Let me ask you, Doc, I know you said you're worried, because I was actually going to ask you, how worried are you, but let me vary the question now. In what universe, in what country on earth does criminal elements abduct innocent citizens of the country and keep them within the territory of the country, not in a different country, within the same territory of that country, and they demand ransom from the government? They take pictures, videos, they upload the videos that, here, I have these people, in this country, I have them. If you don't give me money, I would execute them. And they go ahead to actually, carry out these threats. And the government seems helpless. Doc, I'm sorry to repeat myself by asking, what is going on really?
I don't know. What I know is, all I can tell you with some certainty is that we've lost this war against these sundry threats.
Really?
Bandits, kidnappers, insurgents, foreign interests interested in weakening our country and interested in our minerals, undermining the integrity and the competence of our intelligence and the security forces. We've lost this battle now.
Oh, wow.
Because what else is there to do? If you abduct 200, 300 people, including children, and you have to pay ransom, and then another group learns that you can do this. Our people, we are a country of 250 million people. Then virtually every Nigerian is at risk. It's at risk. And these kind of crimes repeat themselves routinely. So now it happens in Kwara, then it happens in Naija, then it happens elsewhere. I don't know. You asked me in what country other than Nigeria. I don't know. To be honest, I think this can only happen to us in this country. So the Chibok girls under President Jonathan, and the Chibok girls was in a disaster in more ways than one. One, it signaled the commencement of a practice that allows criminals to take huge numbers of Nigerians as hostages, and then you have to negotiate and pay huge amounts of money. And it just becomes a copycat. Other criminals will do this. And there's no boundary. So unless you break the backbone of these criminals who are doing this to us, and stop all this nonsense that this is about religion, these people are untouchable because they are Muslims, these ones are it's an ethnic group thing. It's all over the country. Ransom for money has become a national industry. That's basically what it is. And the more we argue about, they are protected by this person because they are Muslims or they are Fulani or they are this, the more we argue, the more these people dig in. Somebody understands. Somebody somewhere understands our weakness and is exploiting. And what is even more worrying is, if you abduct 10, 50, 200 people, and you get, 10 billion naira in return, or whatever. 10 billion naira is likely to go into purchase of more weapons, pay more people to join you. The numbers of the people on the other side of our security are increasing. They don't use this money to buy mansions in Abuja and Lagos. They buy more weapons, they get more people to join them, so that they can get more and more Nigerians as kidnappers. And other people see this and it happens. So the collapse is near total. And I hate speaking in this tone because I don't want to send the wrong impression. But that is the reality that we're facing. And again, I get back to this election and this administration. This thing is happening right under an administration that says it is committed to securing us. What record will they present in 2020, in the next few months? What record to convince Nigerians that we are safe?
Doc, many have argued that the reason why this insecurity crisis has festered so appallingly is because the president hasn't really devoted quality time, enough political will to tackling it fundamentally, that he's been, distracted by politics of re-election and all of that, and then also revenue generating, tax reforms, all of those. Do you share such sentiments?
Yeah, largely. President Tinubu, I don't think ever really focused on governance beyond what he thought was some critical economic reforms, removing subsidy, harmonizing the dollar with the naira, improving the state's capacity to tax Nigerians, and then using that money to reinforce his political base. I don't think considerations of improving the efficacy of the government and its institutions has ever been a priority. I'm not too sure that President Tinubu has been prepared for presidency, to be honest. Beyond a mature ambition to be president, which is sad because he was succeeding another president who also had a huge appetite and an ambition to be president. And this is the curse of Nigeria. people who have nurtured this desire and ambition to be president get to be president. That is a disaster. And if we don't know it, now we know. Buhari did that.
Ran 3 unsuccessful bids.
Yes, and eventually succeeded. And the moment he succeeded, he drew the line on governance. Thank God I'm president now. And the country can fix itself. And we're seeing that in Tinubu now. And, we should draw our lessons from this. We should learn our lessons. People who seek power for themselves to satisfy national personal ego, to be president, should be avoided. And, President Tinubu was governor for 8 years. And then he went into political wilderness. He was out there as a fixer, political fixer. But the truth is, very little had prepared him for governance beyond the 8 years that he stopped being a governor in 2007 and remained a major political player in the fringes. Finally, he says, no, I want to be president. And he never told us really what it was. And people said, okay, maybe if we give him the power. And he had enough resources and the clout and the connections to become president. And people thought, okay, maybe this guy would change the trajectory that President Buhari left in the country. He just made it worse. So one of our misfortune in this country is that our democracy, far from bringing out the best people to lead a country that has the potential to be among the best, all it does is to play into the hands of people who have resources, massive resources, and huge ego and ambition to become president. And once they become president, they draw the line. They draw the line. And this is, unfortunately, appears to be what happened. And the tragedy now with President Tinubu is that there are still a tiny number of people, maybe including him, who think that people who criticize him are not paying attention to his performance in the economy. He is wrong, because we do pay attention to his records in the economy. And what we see is increasing levels of poverty, increasing levels of desperation, more and more people who are moving into crime and criminality, and all these are happening under his watch. So of what value is your economic reform if families now eat less than they ate before? If children get expelled from school simply because with all the money you are sending to additional money you are sending to local governments, they are not improving primary schools. They are not training teachers. They are not recruiting teachers. So children of the poor don't go to school. Of what value is the economy? We read all these figures,
macroeconomic numbers and all of that.
And sometimes I wonder whether the people who write those things are not really insulting Nigerians. They must think we are idiots. Because every time you write these things, the achievement of President Tinubu in the economic sector is fantastic. You ask, is it happening in this country? Or is it in another country? Because it certainly is not happening in this country. So either they are so far removed from the realities under which Nigerians live, or they have contempt, they have nothing but contempt, and indifferent to the perceptions of Nigerians regarding how we feel about a president.
Doc, okay, let me bring it home to you now. On Channels TV recently, some days ago, a week ago, you said if the PRP, which you chair, if you get power through the ballot next year, in 1 year, you'll solve the insecurity debacle. Isn't that rather over-ambitious?
No, it isn't.
Explain.
I didn't say 2 weeks.
Yeah, of course, you didn't say 2 weeks.
Senate President.
You didn't say 2 weeks.
I didn't even say 6 weeks.
Yes, you said
I didn't say 9 months.
You said 12 months.
We said 1 year as a party, and we mean it.
How?
We already understand why we are so insecure. There is very weak political will. There is a huge level of incompetence in terms of managing our resources. There's huge corruption going on. procurement of weapons, utilization of this, diversion of funds from money that should go into securing Nigerians into other. We already have an idea of why we are where we are. We know why our communities and our people on the streets, in their homes, on their farms, in their villages, we know why they are insecure. Nigerians created this situation, and it's going to take Nigerians to fix it. Not the French, not the Russians, not the Chinese, not America, Nigerians. So understanding the problem, at least some element of the problem, is halfway towards solving it. And we can fix it, because we didn't just isolate this. We didn't say this in a vacuum. The PRP has said it will focus on 5 things, and the most important one is that it will restore competence, integrity, and empathy to the level of leadership, at all levels of leadership. Now, a competent leader and an honest leader will understand that of all the things you need to do in this country is to secure a nation of 250 million people that deserve to live in peace. Not just in peace in the sense that bandits and kidnappers and arsonists and sergeants don't attack them, but also in peace with each other. Yeah. We don't hate each other. We don't always say, oh, it's these people who are causing it. So we came up with these 5 things. The most important for us is to restore competence, integrity, and empathy and competence to the level of leadership. That's why in PRP, we're emphasizing whoever flies our flag must have some qualities which people can trust. We fight corruption. Then we said, with that capacity, we can fight corruption. We can fight insecurity. Because we will rebuild our capacities to protect Nigerians. We will restore the integrity in the defense and security forces. We will devote a huge amount of money to buy whatever it is that we need to defeat these people. It is not acceptable that the man who's kidnapping you is 10 times better equipped, has better intelligence, and higher morale than the people you're paying to protect your people. That's unacceptable. We would also improve the economy so that we stop people. We use the resources of the country so that every time we secure a place, we can improve education, for instance, to stop children of the poor from joining these people who are doing this. We will work and reunite this country. So this tendency of blaming each other is your people who are doing it. It's your people who are doing it. We'll stop, remove this hatred in the minds of each other. We never used to hate each other. We have always known we are different people in many ways. But we're Nigerians first. They have no business fighting you simply because you speak a different language. There's none. We've never had a reason. God. Yes, we'll worship a different God.
In a different way.
You know? And finally we said we'll restructure this country.
Oh, restructuring?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
We said we have five issues. We said we will restore competence, integrity, and empathy, the level of leadership. We will secure Nigerians. We will rebuild the economy. We will remove the hate, work towards, we will reunite Nigerians, and we will restructure this country. That's a very bold move to make, but we've made a commitment. This country doesn't work for anybody.
The way it's currently structured.
Yes. So we would ask everybody's views about how do you want it. Everybody will get something out of it. No section of Nigeria, geographical, cultural, religious, will get everything. But we can. It's our country, for goodness sake. And we know what is wrong with our country. PRP has some of the brightest people, most intelligent people. We just don't show our faces.
Okay. There are too many questions running through my mind, apart from the ones I have written down. You said you have good people, competent people, empathetic, Can you mention some of your candidates in the forthcoming election? Presidential candidates. How many of them and who are they?
We have four candidates.
Okay, 4 candidates. Correct.
Currently we have, I think, 4. We're just concluded our screening.
Okay.
We're looking at the outcome of the screened. Well, we're looking, they have been screened, but we have to now, today, as I speak to you, from here I'll go to, we want to see the result of the screening. We are likely to end up with, I think, 3 or 4. What I can tell you is that by sheer coincidence, all 4 come from the southern part of the country. All the 4.
Southern part or southwest or southeast?
We have, I think, one person, two persons from the southeast and 2 from the south-south.
Okay.
We don't have a presidential aspirant from the southwest. Those are the people who offered to buy our tickets. And
how much was your form, sir? 50 million, 100 million?
For presidency?
Yes.
20 million.
20 million.
Yeah.
Okay. I should have actually come to people.
Yes. Ask me the cost of a ticket for the House of Assembly.
How much, sir?
750,000.
House of Assembly?
State Assembly.
Yes. That's still
because
high.
We want to, 75,000.
Oh, 75. That's
sorry. You pay 25,000 for expression of interest. We want to attract young people. We want to attract women. We want to attract honest, good Nigerians to state assemblies. We want to rebuild the political process from the bottom. If we have a lot of good people in state assemblies, they can resist corrupt governance. And if we have enough governors in government house, they can spend state money to build schools, build roads, build hospitals, build markets, rehabilitate roads, do something for the poor, and allow the economy to heal and rebuild itself.
I know you alluded to this earlier on in your opening remarks. The president recently appointed a special advisor on Homeland Security, a retired Major General. Has he lost confidence in Malam Nuru Ribadu, his national security advisor? Has he?
I've read many comments about this. I don't know. I don't think. I know a little bit about how Malam Nuru Ribadu and the president relate. I think they still have an excellent relationship. My feeling is rather mundane. My thinking is rather mundane. I prefer to think that the president has just done one of the things that he is fond of doing, just simply taking a decision without necessarily thinking it through. I think it's just another job for the boys. I hope it's another job for the boys because it's a lot less dangerous than undermining the office of the National Security Advisor. I think that's the only answer I can give you.
And I want to agree with you that I hope it's just another job for the boys and not, undermining the NSA. Now, on Arise TV again, another TV station, you said President Bola Tinubu is, disconnected, from the economic and security realities facing Nigerians. Do you believe he is just incompetent, or this is a deliberate move to keep the people busy battling all these crises? Because you have to struggle to pay bills, endless bills, light bills, water bills, food, school fees, rent, you are just in that cycle. And then you're afraid so that you're not kidnapped. What do you think, Doc?
I think President Tinubu has become a prisoner of his own ego. He is quite possibly the most powerful president we've had since 1999, maybe even in the military days. He has amassed so much power around himself. Maybe it makes him feel more secure, maybe it makes him feel more confident, but whether it was by design or by accident, President Tinubu is the most powerful, quite possibly the most powerful black man, certainly the most powerful African leader, defined as a president who has all the trappings and the mechanics of power. That makes you a prisoner. It doesn't make you very powerful. It makes you a prisoner of your own thinking. It makes you a prisoner of a very, very tiny cycle of people who have access to you. It makes you a prisoner of poor advice, which you can't avoid. And it locks you out. It doesn't allow you to know what is going on. Perhaps I don't know him well enough to even guess about his psychology. I think he feels either by design or by accident, power gives him security and comfort. But President Tinubu, yes, I will repeat this, is isolated clearly from all his utterances and a lot of the policies that he takes. He is completely out of touch with Nigerians. Now, must be people behind him who are doing a lot of the things that advising him to do a lot of the things that he's doing. Somehow I think they're getting away with it. I'll give you one example. Today, as we begin to go into the high third gear and fourth gear of this competition for 2027, President Tinubu has amassed 32 governors. Poached some, forced some, cajoled some, bribed some to join his party by promising them that they will be re-elected. And now he's facing a crisis of affluence. He's filled his party up with very powerful politicians. For every important position, governor, senator, house, you had 6 or 7 people, all of them qualifying or ambitious for that position. When he was doing this, somebody ought to have said to him, Mr. President, if we fill up our room with all these people, what happens when we have to decide the few that get this ticket? We will implode. And we've said here with you, when we were talking, we said APC will implode. And APC is imploding.
Right before our eyes.
Yes. So whoever was advising President Tinubu that the way to go, sir, so that you can be guaranteed coming back in 2027, is get all these governors to join you. First, they represent the vital link between you and 2027. False. They don't. They are as guilty as he is. And they are as disliked by a large number of the people as he is. So that was a false assumption, that if you get all the governors, poach all the governors from other parties, and they come over to you and they are guaranteed seats, 2027 is yours. That is a very fallacious thinking, and they are paying the price for it as we speak. I know how many APC people have been knocking on our door in PRP who have lost out in the competition, saying, can we come in? And then we're saying, sorry, the guidelines don't allow us to let you in. There was a time when you could have left and joined us, and maybe some of you could have made it here, but we can't. And that is poor advice. That's poor decision making. And it's the kind of thing that you shouldn't have. Let me also give you another example. When the president had an excellent opportunity to go beyond governors and a tiny circle of ministers to get a real feel of the country. What do Nigerians feel about security? What do Nigerians feel about poverty? But he hasn't. He has traveled more outside this country than he has visited states in Nigeria. There are some states he has quite possibly never even thought of visiting. But he's gone out of this country countless times. One way in which you get a feel of the country is by living in the comfort of the villa and going to some states and meeting people. And he hasn't. So when I use the word the president is isolated, those are the things he's isolated from the genuine state of the country. He's also isolated from advice and suggestions and ideas that should ordinarily caution him against taking certain steps. And now he's going to have to pay the price for it, because he's going to face a country that is angry, that is alienated from him, that feels he has abandoned it until now, that he's begging for re-election, and is quite possibly going to turn its back on it. And this is why we're hoping, whatever happens, that the 2027 elections will be credible, free, and fair.
You know, it's interesting you said this, because an APC chieftain, you know, a former minister, federal minister, sat right here where you sat, you know, and said exactly the same thing, that he made 3 attempts, failed attempts, to get across to the president, because the president does not have quality advice. and he's made botched attempts to see the president. And I was saying, if a man at that level cannot have access, then, but Doc, you also said one of your interviews that President Tinubu is bad for Nigeria, but incidentally, he got the largest chunk of his votes from the North in 2023. Did the North make a mistake in 2023?
Oh, really? I don't think the North made a mistake. First, we have become victims and captives of this rather very damaging, very destructive sentiment that there are two Nigerias, the North and South. And if a president comes from the northern part of the country, he has to serve for 8 years. And if he comes from the southern part of the country, that is one of the most destructive things. And this poisonous politics is that. Because among the many, many negative things, you come from the southern part of the country. If you run for president for 8 years, it means for those 8 years, the 2 terms you are elected, the other part of the country is entirely and completely locked out in terms of fielding candidates, in terms of asking Nigerians, look at this one. This guy has a lot better qualities. He has more personal integrity, he has a stronger record of competence, he has all the qualities that you need. You lock out everybody. Everybody. This is what is going on now. Everybody is saying, no. This is the turn of Tinubu must be 8 years. Yes. So no northerner should even dare offer to contest. That means more than half of the country, because the North is more than half of Nigeria, more than half of the country is locked out entirely in terms of providing people who could say, I can do better than Tinubu. People will say, no, it's not your turn. Which turn? Whose turn? When do you become to now allocate turns to a country that's so desperate looking for quality? And if we're talking about turns, why does it have to go to another? Why does a Yoruba man have to have 8 years?
Rather than Southeast or South-South?
Yes. Why?
If it must be in the South.
Yes. Why doesn't it go to an Efik person or to an Orobo person or somebody, an Edo person? Yes. Why? Aren't they Nigerians too? Why does it have to go to the big groups only? If it comes to the North, why can't it go to a Northern Christian? If you have to zone this thing. This zoning thing is damaging, is destructive, and it simply makes no sense. So, if we, as we speak now, everybody is precluded from contesting. The North can't field a candidate unless perhaps possibly Atiku is freed by the shackles of the judiciary and the government from not running, perhaps 1 or 2 parties field another candidate from the North. All the candidates will come from the southern part of the country. Who would beat Tinubu? All the money he has, all the political support he has. The people. The people can defeat President Tinubu. They may not vote for him. In fact, majority of the people will not vote for him if it's based purely on his record. And he cannot go and appeal to them to say, I'm a southerner, so vote for me. What does he say to the northerners? So northerners didn't make a mistake because of this pervasive idea at the time that allow a southerner to. 2, our Muslim clerics, the people who went to the president, this president, and said, sir, let's try something. Let's try a Muslim ticket. In fairness to President Tinubu, what I understand was that initially he doubted whether it would work. They said it will. So what is the benefit? And they said, you will become president. You become the president, get a Muslim from the North to be a vice president, have a Muslim ticket, and you'll win. I think his ego then spoke to him and said, try it. And he did. And the large votes he got substantially came from the northwestern part of the country, which has a huge population of the Muslims. Now, a lot of people are going around saying, oh, the Muslim clerics fooled us. They told us the Muslim ticket will improve the life of the Muslim. In Nigeria, they will do things for Muslims that they couldn't do before. They didn't.
Yes.
The life of the Muslim, like the life of the Christian, ordinary has just been made worse. So but I think the North is a little bit wiser now. Unfortunately, because of the misfortunes and the declines in all standards of living. And it is quite possible that, if the elections are free and fair, you are likely to see a North that is likely to vote more in accordance with its interests than on the issues of religion or ethnicity or where the candidate comes from. Most of the candidates will come from the South. In fact, virtually all of them. And I think the North is well placed now to make a choice. We are fielding Southern. Our candidates are all from the South.
That's your party.
My party.
Yes.
And this is not by design. It's just simply the way it's worked out. And some of them, as I said, are excellent Nigerians. They can provide excellent leadership. And we're very proud of the fact that we were able to attract that quality of people. They are from the southern part of the country, but they are first and foremost Nigerians. And we're hoping that Northerners will look at all the 14, 15 people who will be fielded as presidential candidates and choose ours. Because we are the only party that commits openly and has committed openly to working for the poor, improving the lot of the poor, securing Nigerians, and then fielding people of integrity. We would not touch a kobo, we will not steal people's money, and we will protect Nigerians. We know how it will be done, and we'll do it.
I know your explanations pretty much gave but let me ask you pointedly, you personally do not believe in zoning because it shuts the door against every Nigerian and merit and all of that?
Yes. I mean, look, there are certain circumstances where zoning ensures a little bit higher level of equity. But look, America, the U.S., in the 250 years of the U.S.'s existence, I don't think they've had more than 10 presidents from the northern part of the U.S. I mean, from the southern part of the U.S. And nobody has ever raised an issue about this. In most developed democracies, and even a lot of developing democracies, you don't hear about this business of you become Christian, it's my turn and your turn. Because it is damaging, it is destructive, it simply entrenches the very source of the zoning rather than ameliorating it. Even if during the military, although they made efforts to cover it under some political tinkering or whatever, we had unfortunately the emergence of the regional issue there. This has been an obstacle for Nigeria's growth and development, which shut out a huge number of our people who could otherwise be good. If we had an excellent 2 or 3 excellent Southerners, people from the southern part of the country, who competed for Obasanjo against Buhari in 2019, I was then the spokesman of the Northern Elders Forum. And the Northern Elders Forum went out and built up, we created an event here in Abuja that involved Northern Elders Forum, Afenifere, Ndibo, Middle Belt Forum, and we met at the Hilton, the other Hilton.
Pandev, if I'm not mistaken.
Pandev. We met and we said to Nigerians, don't vote Buhari back. This was after his first 4 terms, like now. Yes. At this point where Tinubu is. Yes. We met in public and it was spearheaded by the Northern Elders Forum. And we were Northerners. We said, don't vote for Buhari. His record in the first 4 years have been disastrous for Nigerians. We were denounced by a lot of people from the they want somebody from the southern part. We said we want anybody who's better than Buhari. But don't vote for Buhari. This man's record from 2015 to 2019 do not suggest that he can get this country better. And it turned out that we were right. So this zoning thing doesn't have a basis in terms of creating, allowing the emergence of good people. I wish it doesn't exist. It exists, so we are limited to picking people from second 11, sometimes from no 11s at all. That's what we have. The politician with the most money will maneuver his way all the way, benefiting from the fact that he comes from a particular part of the country. This is not good for Nigeria.
Doc, this next question, I want you to be I know it's very forthright, but I need to stress that. This push to change President Tinubu, is it truly because it's not good for Nigeria because of his performance in the past 3 years, or the North just simply wants power? Because some parts of Nigerians believe the North sees presidential power as their birthright. Which is it?
I just told you the story.
Exactly.
If the Northern Elders Forum, at that time, and we still are, we were the conscience of the North. We were the voice of the North. We campaigned for President Buhari against Jonathan. Northern Elders Forum. From 2012 until 2015, Northern Elders Forum was in the forefront of campaigning against Jonathan and for Buhari, because we genuinely believe Buhari, tough guy, tough former military, he will get rid of Boko Haram. At that time, Boko Haram was the only existential threat against this country. He will fix corruption. He's not corrupt. He's not going to steal people's money. And we campaigned for him, not because he was a northerner, but because we believed that genuinely the man was good enough. Within 1 year, we had parted ways with Buhari. It was very clear. All he wanted was to become a president. 4 years later, we rallied around other socio-cultural groups and said to Nigerians and the world, Buhari is bad news. And we were northerners. We said, don't vote for Buhari again. This man, if he comes back, another 4 years for Buhari will be disastrous for the rest of Nigeria, not just for the North. And we were right. So why on earth would we say to northerners or Nigerians, don't vote for Tinubu purely because he's from the southern part of the country? If Tinubu had done well, Tinubu was a product of the North.
Yes.
The votes that gave Tinubu victory came from the North. Why on earth? We're not stupid. Why on earth would we say to northerners and southerners, don't vote for Tinubu because he will finish this country? We won't. We want a good government. We want a good leader. And if Tinubu is not good enough for another 4 years, we would offer no apology to anybody. We will say, don't give him another 4 years. If he's a northerner, we would do the same thing. We did this with Buhari.
Brilliant. You came out a few days ago to state clearly, unequivocally, that Mr. Peter Obi and former Governor Rabiu Kwankwaso approached your party, the PRP, for them to fly, make their presidential bid on your party. And they demand certain guarantees, that maybe the ticket will be given to them on the platter and all of that. Can you expatiate briefly on this?
I was asked if it is true that Peter Obi and Senator Kwankwaso approached our party and was engaged in discussions, and I said yes. There was no point lying about it. There was nothing to hide in it. Parties talk to parties, politicians talk to parties. And we spent a number of days engaged in discussions. First, me and them, and me as chairman and them. And then we set up teams. We discussed whether it is possible for them to get automatic tickets, whether there are positions where if they come in, they have huge followings, they can get positions. We discussed a number of things related to how, if they are on board, we can help to work to get them elected. And in the end, I think we also discussed a number of challenges facing the party. At that time, INEC had not uploaded my name and the rest of the executive on their website. Yes. And also that there are some people saying, no, they don't recognize me as leader, or they don't recognize the convention. They are the true PRP people. That's part of our tradition as PRP, by the way. We've always lived with these fringes. Yeah. Anyway, in the end, they said, well, thank you for tolerating us all this long. We thought very deeply about this collaboration we could have had with you, but we're sorry to say we're moving on. But thank you for being kind and to engage us. And we said, no problem at all. Thank you, too, for looking up at us. And we were sure we would meet again. And I'm sure we would meet again. Defeating Tinubu will require collaboration and some kind of alliances. And that's why we're not burning any bridges. We are friends with Governor Peter Obi and Senator Kwankwaso. We are friends with their party. And I'm sure somewhere along the line we will find reason to collaborate.
You didn't quite confirm whether they demanded for a presidential pass, that just hand it to them. Secondly, I also heard from Grapevine that in addition to that, they also said some of the position on the NWC they will replace your men on the NWC. So I need you to confirm.
These are politicians. Anybody who has been following Nigerian politics would know. Anywhere you see Peter Obi and Senator Kwankwaso going to another party, there's only one thing. Why do you think they left ADC? The quarrel was about presidential tickets. So when they come, we're not exactly naive. We know they would say, we can't be number twos to anybody. We can't be number ones. The two of us that you see here is already the number one and two. And so we would like assurances that will be, it's natural. And we were prepared for this. And we gave them our answer. We have a democratic way. Our party insists that there are democratic ways through which flag bearers should emerge. And we reminded them that we don't have the power to waive those requirements, constitutional requirements. And we didn't have any candidates better than them. And it's quite possible if they had stayed,
they might have emerged.
They might have emerged. But to give a guarantee wasn't ours. The party was not property of the leadership. Not mine, not the leadership. So we made that very clear. The other issue about positions, of course, you have to understand that. They want their own people in a party they are now members. So, again, like I said, it wasn't surprising. There was nothing unusual about the request they made. People asked me why they left, and that's why I mentioned it, in the interest of complete honesty. And like I said, we parted as friends, and we are still friends.
Fair enough. Now, Doc, has there been any red lines, that this government, the government of President Tinubu, any lines they've crossed that, made you so disappointed or, gives you serious concern about the future of this country? In terms of insecurity, in terms of the economy, in terms of rule of law, democracy, and all of that?
Many. The first is security. We have no business being this insecure. And President Tinubu had all the opportunity, all the powers in the world to turn the tide that was left by Buhari. He didn't. We are no more insecure now than we were in 2023. Millions and millions of Nigerians are poorer now than they were in 2023. Millions and millions of farmers have stopped growing, either because they've lost their farms or because incompetent and poor economic policies have made it just not worthwhile to grow anything, because this government flip-flops over policy. Sometimes you spend a year cultivating something and you find that the price is half of what it was last year. So people don't farm. A huge number of our farming populations don't farm. Farms go uncultivated because they are not secure. And I think the level of disunity in this country is more intense because this administration has benefited from fault lines. They have deepened them. This idea that you are this, you are not from this area, you are this from, they never attempted to address why we quarrel about who we are. Why should my faith and my religion, I mean my ethnicity, or where I come from, become a problem in the way we work? We have coexisted for 100 years. They have been managed that. So there are multiple red lights. But the most important one is the level of incompetence in governance. I have never seen a government so incompetent than this one. Just simply tolerating declines without putting forward policies and measures that can at least mitigate insecurity, poverty, and the drift towards breakup of this country.
I'm sure, Doc, you were referring to a viral video circulating where Senator Rabiu Kwankwaso allegedly issued some threats against a public affairs analyst.
Well, he made comments about Professor Usman Yusuf that many people will interpret as threats, and I think it was unfortunate. It's out of character, and I think Professor Usman Yusuf has a reason to feel threatened. My advice was invite his attention to the fact that this is unbecoming of somebody aspiring to be the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and perhaps it will work. But I think the political atmosphere will get even more threatening in the next few weeks. And we must all be careful. If you want to be better than Tinubu, then you have to operate at a standard higher than President Tinubu's standards.
As we wind down, Doc, you warned that rigging in 2027, rigging the elections in 2027 would carry dire or severe consequences. What are the opposition parties or figures? What are you guys willing to do to ensure the elections next year are not rigged and that the votes of Nigerians will count?
Well, first, we're sensitizing our supporters to go out in numbers and vote. Anything that suggests that it is a good tactic to avoid or boycott the elections because you think that the government will rig this election is counterproductive. In fact, government will be very happy to have an election which is boycotted by people who suspect that the election will be rigged. So virtually all the opposition parties are united on this point. Go out and vote. Vote in large numbers and raise your level of vigilance. Follow the process all the way through. 2, we are demanding, when we raise our voices, that INEC must leave above board. A lot of people are saying there are already signs or things that INEC shows on the ground that INEC will not be free and fair. And we're saying, well, INEC is the only body in the country that will conduct this election. Isn't it better to say to INEC, don't destroy this country? If you help or botch the election or help in its rigging, you could actually signal massive damage to this country from which it will not recover. 3, we're talking to the international community. We're saying to countries that love our country, please talk to our leaders. Impress upon them that 2027 will make a great difference on whether we survive or not. And it's in your own interest too for Nigeria to continue to survive as one country. If this country breaks down or breaks out, 250 million people, the whole of the world will feel it. And I'm telling you, not just West Africa, Europe, you would have 30 or 50 million Nigerians knocking on the door of Europe. We would flood the whole of Sahel. Nigeria's breakup, it will be a disaster of unimaginable consequences. So it's in the global community's
Enlightened self-interest.
Yes, to talk to our leaders and to say, be careful and keep an eye on it. Don't just warn them. Keep an eye on it. Finally, we're appealing to President Tinubu directly and in manners like this. we want to say to him, you wanted to be president. You were president in 2024. Allow free and fair and credible election to decide whether you've done well enough in the last 4 years to warrant Nigerians voting for you in a free and fair and credible election. Don't go down in history as the president who destroyed this country by doing things that would suggest that you want to come back at all costs. 2015, a president was defeated and he conceded. He was just a Nigerian like you. He wanted to win. He worked hard to win. He didn't win. The vote said he didn't win. The heavens didn't fall. If President Tinubu wins a credible, free and fair election, we will submit, we will accept the results. And Nigerians will accept the result. If he doesn't, it is in his own interest to yield to the will of the people and to accept the results. I don't even want to contemplate what would happen if Nigerians in huge numbers perceive or see evidence that this election was rigged. I don't even want to go there.
Interesting. Final question, Prof. Last time you and I met, we were there was high optimism that yes, opposition have a fair chance of defeating the president. Has anything happened since then and now to water down that optimism? Do you see any scenario where in a free contest, in a proper contest, the opposition can actually unseat the president, or it's a foregone conclusion? We should just allow him have his second term.
No, on the contrary. Between the last time we spoke and now, I think the chances that the opposition parties, either one of the opposition parties or opposition parties working together, can defeat this government. The chances are brighter.
Even with the rupturing of the coalition, the ADC and all of that.
See, ADC is a party. It's made up of people. The key issue is to prevent the return of this government because it doesn't deserve to come back.
Yes.
Because if it comes back, it can't offer anything different from what it did in the last 4 years. And that means Nigeria will be doubly worse off. I'm not sure we can stand another 4 years of this level of incompetence, indifference, and abuse. And so this is really the rallying point. This is the rallying call. I think opposition has an excellent chance of working together to defeat Tinubu. And it can be done.
Some have argued that the best chance was this, opposition political figures rallying together, working together, burying their individual egos to make sure they achieve this. And that now that they've splintered, it's a repeat of 2023. They will splinter their votes. What's your take on it?
People vote, not politicians. Politicians are important because they mobilize people in directions. But it's not politicians that vote, it's people. And the biggest opposition that Tinubu has is not politicians, it's not political parties like us, it's the people. This election is about APC versus Nigerian people. That's really what is going to happen. Nigerians will, one by one, put their ballots in to say no or yes to Tinubu, and more of them are likely to say no. So he can do what he wants with all these politicians. The people can see, they know what is going on. They think, they know why he is damaging the opposition, but he's not damaged. He has damaged the people long before he damaged these politicians. And the day of the people will come. So I think that we have bright chances of success. Success determined as putting an end to the Tinubu administration. I see good signs of some level of some form of collaboration of opposition parties. This is one of the things people don't tell you. You can destroy people's home, but you can't destroy the people.
We look forward to that.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure we'll see again soon to review goings on again in our policy.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Ahmed, for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you.